it's up for grabs now!
Magic ball from Bergkamp to Patrick Vieira!
Oh, would you believe it? Oh, right, what a way to get it!
Fabulous solo goal by Thierry Henry.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Arsenal Lounge. Good things and bad things. Good thing is we've got a debutant on the channel, Tom from Goonertalktv. How are you, my friend? You're good? Welcome.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. You doing good?
We're excited. We're excited to have you on. Hopefully it'll be first of many. And welcome aboard. My fellow lounger, Lev. How are you?
How you doing, Shaheen? Loving the
Good,
backdrop,
man.
by the way, yeah? We're going to talk
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
later on.
I'm sure you and Mo will touch on it soon. I'm sure you and Mo will touch on it soon.
We'll put that to the chat later on. Maybe we can get them to give us ideas of what we could put on there on a weekly. That's another thing we could be doing. We'll leave that with Mo.
Some ideas for it to change it. I'm going to put something on it and then change it every week.
He just loves that Pablo Escobar cell in the cell look. That's what it is.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to change it.
Can we see a little metal toilet, Shaheen?
Do you know what? Let me explain
Don't
this.
talk about that.
No, hold on. Let me explain this for people who don't know. Tom and Mo, we've never had this either. Some people, including this young chap on top left, they think I have certain looks of the one Pablo Escobar. There we go. You see?
I don't know where that come from. It's a malfunction. Sorry, man.
No, man. I don't know where it's come from either.
Can you put Kovacic up there?
Yeah, well. Mo, how are you, man? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Listen, man, I'm good in just about every area of my life, other than the one area we're here to talk about. You could pick a million topics. You could talk about marriage. You could talk about kids. You could talk about anything, just anything, and I'll be pretty upbeat. But you want to talk to me about the one thing that I just can't be positive about right now.
Yeah, I know. Well, we might as well get into it. We'll start with the debutant. Tom, what was your thoughts on the game yesterday? Just before, try not to go into the transfers and so just on the game itself, and then we'll touch on that later.
Look, there's no such thing as a North London derby friendly to kind of start things off. That it is pre-season. You can caveat it as much as you like, but I think you could tell from the performances of both teams and the tackles that were flying in and how it was being played out, it wasn't really a friendly in the minds of 90% of the players on that pitch. It was a weird game. It was a game which kind of swung each way in regards to kind of dominance. Spurs were on top for spells. Arsenal, I thought, had the lion's share of most of the dominance in the game. But as has been Arsenal's problem for a long time, is they just couldn't make that dominance tell when they had the ball in the right positions. The quality of chances that we created wasn't good enough. And when we got into that final third, the final ball, the final shot just wasn't there. There were some positives. I mean, I looked at Lukonga's performance again as a player who's ready for the Premier League, to be honest. And I will be absolutely fuming if Mohamed Elneny is starting alongside Granit Xhaka on Friday against Brentford, because without Partey there, you need someone with that kind of energy and fluidity that Lukonga brings to the team, and I think that he would just be such a good option for us over someone like Elneny, who I just still can't yet work out what he really does for us, to be honest. But I think there was other things that we need to focus on in regards to criticisms. Aubameyang, I just can't really stand him on the left-hand side. It just doesn't seem to work for him at all. He's not. We need creation in the final third, and Aubameyang's only going to give us really goals in those final third areas. Not known for his assisting, so I'd rather us pick between one of him or Lacazette as that central striker. But I am concerned that again is going to be the lineup that we see on Friday, with maybe a couple of changes. But I expect Aubameyang to start. I expect Lacazette to start with him too, and that's a big problem. But I'm sure we'll get into lots more about the game. But overall, concerning, but some bright sparks to focus on as well.
Fair enough. Mo, what was your thoughts on the game?
Well, my thoughts were when I was watching Arsenal, we are now, 5-6 days away from our opening game of the new season after a very, very poor previous season, which means that you'd expect a response. And I was looking at the team, I was looking at the passages of play on the ball, off the ball, in every area. And I was thinking, so where is that response? What have we worked on? Where is sort of a marked improvement or some evidence that we've actually really tried to address a problem or, a weakness in our play? And I was looking at it, and I was looking for something outstanding in just one area, whether that was pressing or whether that was, for example, set pieces, whether that was wing backs or counter attacks or possession football, whatever it was. And every single thing that I could see, I thought we're just average. There's nothing that comes across to me as that's a really well drilled team, that's a dynamic team, or they've clearly worked on this. Just average. And where do just average teams finish? Probably about anywhere between 7th and 13th. So it's not really where I want to be. I'm not in the headspace that I want to be in, where I find myself coming up to the new season. Whilst yes, there were some individual players that impressed, the individual players aren't going to get us into that top 4. That's got to be a team effort. And even the individual players that did impress, they're no Lionel Messi's. They're not going to drag you, right? They're going to be part of the puzzle, not sort of, completely change it all for you. So unfortunately, I was very unenthused watching the game yesterday.
Fair enough. Lev, you got anything different?
How do I follow that? I mean, these two guys have really hit the nail on the head in certain areas, most of the areas. But I will say this: I mean, if you want some positivity, what I got out of it is I did like the look of Ben White. I do think he comes out. And I do like the way he intercepts. He's aggressive. He presses and he wins the ball. And then he does well when he gets the ball. So I like that about him. I did like Lokonga, but is it another situation where we've bought a young midfielder that's potentially not meant to be a starter? A bit like Guendouzi wasn't meant to be when we bought him. He got more games than he expected. It got to his head too quickly, and look what's happened with him. I don't think Lokonga's that sort of profile player. However, I do think he's going to get more game time than we expected. I think we're going to struggle to fill the areas at this sort of short notice of time. We've got now, a week to go. I would prefer Lokonga to El Neni 100%. I'd prefer Partey to Xhaka. I don't mind having Xhaka as a backup. I'd rather get rid of El Neni and bring in someone like a Basuma. Where I saw major problems is it's all well and good getting Ben White in, and you can maybe put Gabriel in alongside him. We still struggled on set pieces, and also I felt that the right back position in particular was targeted. Bellerin was getting caught out of position. He was also physically outdone on numerous occasions, which was causing problems for the centre backs having to be pulled out to cover. That shouldn't be happening. So, we need to address that problem. If you look outside of Bellerin, who we got? Chambers. In fact, I would say when Maitland-Niles come on, it seemed to free Pepe up a little bit more for that sort of 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I don't know if it was a coincidence, and then he went into a CDM role. So a lot of average is what I saw, as Mo would have said. Once we got the likes of Lokonga off and Xhaka off and a few others, it just looked drab. We did create a few chances, but my concern is in the 2 games against Chelsea and Spurs could have scored 2 or 3 goals, should have done, and Chelsea could have scored 4 or 5 against us when they played us. So there's some real concern for me, and not much time to sort it out.
Fair enough. I thought the first half we played well, but second half it was not. It was the old Arsenal again, same mistakes. I could not understand what Pablo Mari was doing for the goal. I think he just felt to get a free kick or something, because he's not there to fall off to get free kicks in your 18-yard box. He's there to defend. El Neni had obviously a part to play on that. I liked Lacazette. I like what he offers up front. The better physicality. I saw him coming back, putting tackles in, winning a ball. Ben White played all right. Pepe was all right as well. But, as you said, as you all said, that there is not a lot that has changed from last season. It's as if, all right, well, carry on where you left off. Which brings me to the main topic of what I want to discuss with you three, because you all have more football knowledge than me, admittedly. But this is the reality of Arsenal Football Club right now. So we played 6 games pre-season, right? Lost 3, draw 1, and won 2. Those 2v1 was at our training ground, right? The idea that let's play Chelsea and Tottenham, the last 2 games, I think that needs to be questioned, because as Tom said earlier, there is not, and this is not a friendly game. A friendly game, if people at the club don't know this, is a game between you and a friendly club where it's all cushy, you're good, you go out there to sort your fitness out. Neither Chelsea or Tottenham are a friendly club to Arsenal. So it's, it is a full-on game. And we saw what happened with Thomas Partey. Challenges. We saw the one that Dele Alli put on Pepe yesterday. Proper challenges. So I'm not sure if it's a good idea to end the preseason Tottenham away. Our direct rivals. Aubameyang is an issue which we're going to discuss, but this is where I worry, and this is what I want to put to all three of you. So when the season finished, okay, surely somebody would have sat down and said, right, we need a backup keeper because we're not going to keep Matt Ryan. We've already decided that we're going to let him go. Runnison, they should have known from that time he made a mistake and that free kick and the ball just slipped through his hand that this is not going to work out. So we need a backup keeper. We need a midfielder. We need a creativity player type for the midfield. Arteta's talked about this quite a lot. We need to sell X, Y, and Z. Right? Now, we've got about 5 days. The season is about to start. Tom, none of these have been addressed. We've purchased a 19-year-old from Belgium that we're all thinking, this guy, he's going to get more games because we couldn't get anybody else. We were going to sell Granit Xhaka, who at times has shown more leadership than Aubameyang, to be fair. Like yesterday, remember, did you see that thing between Højbjerg and Arteta? The only player that wanted to step in was Granit Xhaka. And he's the one that we slag off quite a lot. So none of these issues have been addressed. We still don't have a backup keeper. Leno went down. If he got injured yesterday, we'll be having a different conversation now. Every week and a half, 2 weeks, there's pictures of Edu that is coming out. He's on holiday. I'm worried, Tom. Why has these things not been issued?
You should be worried. You're quite right to be worried. When I went into this kind of summer transfer window, I looked at it as this is one of the biggest opportunities Arsenal have had in a long time to really push for that top 4 in the last half decade or so, as we've kind of declined and gradually dropped out of it. With no European football next season, there's a good chance that we can get a consistent 11 playing in the league. We can upgrade and identify certain positions that need that upgrade. And we had the time to do it. Yes, there was a European Championships and a Copa America, but the Copa America doesn't involve everyone that we're linked to. Neither does the Euros. So it's not necessarily any excuse to say that those 2 tournaments happened and so therefore we can't sign players. You've also got the factor that Mikel Arteta himself said to us prior, I think, way back in March, April time, that they had a plan, that they said they knew what they were going to do. They basically drawn up a list of targets in certain areas. I think they are surprised at how little interest there's been in the players that they've wanted to move on. And I think that's certainly affected how proactive they've been able to kind of be in the market. I try and apply a reason to some of the decisions that have gone on. I think that with some players like Kolasinac, that's a situation that we should have cut ties with a long time ago. We should have realised we're not going to get any money for him. Let's get the £100,000 per week off the wage bill, sort out a deal where we can just terminate the contract. He can go, but he's still here with a week left of the season. There's rumours he may go off to Turkey, but it's something that could have been sorted earlier. Eddie Nketiah is now injured for 4 weeks. That could affect how if he does leave the club. He can still leave the club. We signed Tierney, who was injured. We famously signed Kim Kallström, who was injured. So you can still sell players that are injured, but it could have an effect on the ability for us to sell him. Reece Nelson is still here. Lucas Torreira is still here. And I know he was playing at the Copa America, but again, that is something you could have leading up to the season. And do you remember the summer that we signed Podolski way before kind of the transfer window opened? Chelsea last season signed Timo Werner.
That's when we signed him, hoping to keep Van Persie. Do you remember?
Yeah. And Olivier Giroud was joining to play with Van Persie, if we remember. Yeah. And we could have sorted out a pre-contract of anyone for Lucas Torreira. That could have happened, but it didn't. We haven't been proactive enough in the sales department whatsoever. It's annoying, but I will still try and apply logic to say that in this pandemic situation that we find ourselves in, and there's always the age-old question of how do you sell a player that no one wants? Like, how do you do that? Because the only team that came in for Granit Xhaka was Roma, and they offered 12 million euros plus 3 million, which up front is less than 10 million quid. Now,
That's right.
we can all criticise Granit Xhaka and quite rightly for certain things that he does wrong. But I'm sorry, it's frankly embarrassing that there's a less than £10 million bid going in for him. And I think the club did the right thing not accepting that. Whether they did the right thing offering a new contract is a separate debate. But I don't think they did anything wrong not accepting that deal from Roma. It has also, I think, how much Lokonga's impressed during pre-season has also maybe changed their thought process about the central part of the midfield. But the attacking midfield area, which I think is the biggest area that we need to improve in and add depth and quality to Emile Smith Rowe, I think has been they've waited too long on Erdegaard, who never really was coming. They're now seemingly prioritising James Maddison, and they've offered, as Arsenal typically do, below the valuation and aren't seemingly willing to jump up to that level that's required to sign him. Hopefully we will now with Joe Willock going, and that's a separate debate in itself. But I hope that we will still do business, but as you said there, Shane, I think that we've left it too late in a window that was a real big opportunity for us this season.
That's a fair assessment, Mo.
Yeah.
Tom talked. I'll just tell you, Tom talks about pandemic, and that is a point, right? But why can't Arsenal? I know we're not City, we're not Chelsea, we don't have that financial muscle, but I see other clubs getting transfers done earlier. You know, if you want James Maddison, right, and your season is about to start 4 days' time, and this squad, there's an argument to say is weaker than what it was last year. Why? What is it that we're waiting for?
With arguments such as like the pandemic, I don't like to focus on those because it's a pandemic for everyone. So it doesn't really make me look at Arsenal any more favourably. The thing that I've always said, and you guys have heard me say it, is that we're not the club that makes the first domino fall, pandemic or no pandemic, until we start seeing proper movement in the market. Unfortunately, I just think Arsenal are going to be the ones waiting for that movement. But, I have to agree with Tom on Xhaka. I think, yes, we've done the right thing there in terms of not selling him. But equally, on the flip side of that, it's very frustrating because when we need dominoes to fall, the easiest one is for a club to buy someone off of us. That gets our movement going, and we've just been unable to shift anyone at our club, which has been hugely frustrating to me. Tom also mentioned Willock and said that that's another one to discuss, right? And now this could potentially create a bit of lively debate with all of us because for me, as much as I was happy that we didn't sell Xhaka because I thought the offer was derisory, and even though I want him to go, I don't want Arsenal to be ripped off to that extent. So I think Arsenal did the right thing there. I think we're doing a wrong thing with Joe Willock. We desperately need a goal-scoring midfielder. We hear this English premium that so many people talk about. We see other clubs selling their young English players for much more than what we're rumoured to be receiving from Joe Willock. And Joe Willock, to me, has shown promise that I think is really, really exciting and gives an indication as to what his potential could be. I'm absolutely gutted, I'll be honest with you, that he's going. Not to say that I'm going to hang my hat on the Joe Willock stand and say he's definitely going to be a world-class player in 3, 4, 5 years. But the potential we have seen is so rare in world football that we cannot sacrifice that potential for 20 million just to hopefully go and make another signing happen. You look at his loan spell with Newcastle, and you look at what he's added to his game in the last kind of year of football, the last 6 months of football, his finishing ability, his timing of runs into the box. He has got exactly what Arsenal lack right now. And of all of the players that were on the transfer market that I thought, happy if they go, he was the one that actually was saying last season, he's shown me enough to have a proper chance at Arsenal. But the fact that he's the one that's going probably shows that he is the best of that bunch that's available. And that's why he's one that's being picked off. But for me, save your tweets right now. Whatever you're saying about Joe Willock, save them and look back at them in 5 years' time, because a lot of people could look very silly.
Fair enough. Before I come to Lev, because this is a dear subject to Lev, and I know he's gonna go into one now.
Don't hype it up too much.
We got a few people watching, so please subscribe to Tom, the Goonertalktv. He does great content, almost on daily basis. You do daily transfer show as well, Tom, do you?
Yeah, 8 a.m. for the last 98 days. It's what it's been.
There we go.
So there
So
you go.
if you want everyday news, the Goonertalktv, subscribe to Tom, subscribe to Moh. Moh does great after game reactions. So subscribe to his channel. You'll see stuff. Hit the like button as well. Lev, I know you've been going on about this for a long time. That why is it we're never ready for start of the season? The problems that needed to be addressed, they have not been addressed. The signings we should have been making, we haven't made. We were in a position that we needed to do a lot of work compared to other teams around us, because we finished 8th, average squad. A lot needed to go out, a lot needed to come in. Nothing has been done. And unfortunately, I don't know if guys forgot to touch on that, but this is a little bit important for me as well. Why is it that we keep seeing Edu on holiday and then his son comes out saying, "Oh, my dad is always on the phone"? And I want to come back to this subject with Moh and Tom as well. This doesn't happen in other clubs. You don't see any of that. Why is it that we see this? And where I would have liked to see Edu in his office, right, addressing the problems rather than being on holiday. Take it away, Lev. Make it good.
Well, look, we say it every season. We'll be saying, harping on about it on this show since we've started it. Every preseason, every transfer window, every start of a season, we're not ready. We're always starting with a makeshift squad, a makeshift 11. We said we wouldn't surprise us if we have a makeshift centre-back pairing, El Neni and Xhaka in the middle again. And, you know, it's just something we have done historically. It's like Groundhog Day being a season ticket holder at Arsenal. You know this is coming and nothing's changing. And whilst nothing's changing, nothing's going to change results-wise or you know, at the end of the season with regards to where you end up in the league. Now, the problem we have, I think, is we have suffered greatly for that time, that period where we purchased a lot of players, way too high transfer fees, way too high salaries, and now we're reaping what we've sowed. We're struggling to get rid of the dead wood. It's almost like having Jedwood. You know, they're there, no one wants them, but they're still there, right? So at the end of the day, I don't know what's going to happen. And we seem to still wait to get rid of players before we can purchase anyone, rather than biting the bullet and saying, look, we've made these mistakes, we need to address them. And we haven't done that yet again. So, you know, I understand what Mo's saying with regards to Willock, because yes, he was one of the guys we've put out on loan that actually showed a little bit of hunger to try and prove a point. And we do need a attacking midfielder to get us goals. You know, we don't have that player coming in from deep, making late runs into the box. You know, once the forwards have made the run in behind the centre backs, we haven't had that for a long time. The last sort of player we had like that was Ramsey, and he was injury prone. You know, and then you had your Lundbergs and people like, we've never really had players like that for a long time now. So we do need them. But the problem Arsenal have at this present moment in time, we've got a lot of bang average players on way too high salaries that nobody wants. And whilst we've got that, we're going to struggle. And unless we decide to bite the bullet, I can't see much change. So yes, we've had to. I think our hands were forced with Willock. We've had to try and get some money in. And then we put in all our eggs in one basket with Maddison. And before that was Locatelli as well. There was sort of, you know, it's a lot of time wasted. And now we're up against it. So just another season, another start of the season. And we've got two big games in the first few games at the start of the season, which we always tend to have. It's usually a Liverpool or a City back to back. And again, we risk dropping 6 points in the first few games. So nothing new for me, Shaheen. Nothing new at all.
Yeah, because unfortunately, not, as you can see, not a lot has changed, guys. You know, we're talking about same issues. We're still making individual mistakes. I would have thought the manager would have addressed this is still the case. Leno's distribution is still an issue. On top of that, now I can see we've got a problem on set pieces. Apparently, we were good at set pieces, but we're not now. Last season, I think we were the third best team defensively. And I think we were kind of on the bottom of the table in terms of offensive attack. So what we've done is we've gone and bought a £50 million defender, and we still haven't addressed the issue of the attacking. And we ran a little poll on Twitter. So based on the preseason, how confident are you for the season coming? So 7% were confident, 33% were not confident, and 59% thought it's going to be a disaster. And I think that is a reflection on a fan base right now, and that comes from the club, unfortunately. Tom and Mo, this is the point I'd like to put back on you, because for me this is an important point. Right? Now, why is it that we've got a director of football that his picture is on holidays, this and that, not, his son coming out, my dad, this, we had a poor season. I would have thought the owners would have gone to the guys saying, listen, we need to address this problem. Even if they haven't, right? Edu was part of the invincible team. He shared a dressing room with the likes of Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Gilberto, Paolo, Keown, Seaman. He knows what is required. He was part of the Invincibles. So why is he now going on the way he is, Tom? And also, you touched on a point with Kolasinac. Why is it that Arsenal have cut ties with Mesut Ozil, paid his salary for 6 months to play for Fenerbahce? Socrates essentially paid him off, cancelled the contract. Mustafi. But when it comes to someone like Kolasinac, we signed another left back, but we're still holding off. It was a good point that you made. So why is it that there seems to be one thing for somebody, one thing for somebody else, and just the way the club is going on about the transfer business? Do you see where I'm coming from, Tom?
Yeah. Edu is a really he's a really weird subject to talk about, because and again, I am going to use the word pandemic again at this. He's kind of and only for the context of kind of the situation that he's in, and I will go into kind of the both sides of the argument on it. The side to kind of support Edu and say that what he's done is okay so far as to say that he took over really kind of full control of that area, where Raul saying, he moved on in the kind of the start of the pandemic in 2020. In that time, he's done some good things. Thomas Partey was great, although there was an argument to say that he had a release clause, so that was a fairly simple deal to get done. Gabriel was kind of a crossover between him and Raul. In January, I thought January was quite good, other than the fact that we didn't get in a backup left back, which could have been a real big difference for us during that last 6 months of the season. But I thought Ødegaard getting that deal in was a great bit of business. We got in the backup goalkeeper we needed. We moved on Mesut Ozil, despite still paying a large chunk of his wages, but just getting him and kind of that negative vibe out of the dressing room was positive, along with Mustafi, Kolasinac out on loan. He rectified ever so slightly the Saliba error by kind of getting him out on loan in the first day of the January transfer window as well. And then you move into this summer, and obviously Ben White looks like a really good signing. Lokonga looks like a really good signing. And I have reservations about Tavares from knowing how kind of questionable defensively he's been at Benfica. But it was a backup left back. It's a position that we needed, and he got that done. So that's kind of the argument to say Edu's doing all right. The side of it is this for me was the kind of, if he was on kind of a tightrope and he was swaying between getting to the end of the tightrope or falling off, this summer was really the big tell for me with Edu. And if you were to say that the transfer window was to shut now, it is an absolute failure, this window. There are still weeks to rectify this, but it is going to take a big move towards the end of the window. And at least in my view anyway, 3 signings in different positions to save it. And even then there will be the criticism that it wasn't done early enough. I also feel like he hasn't been as ruthless. He hasn't been as consistent as he was from the January window with some of those players, like you mentioned, Kolasinac, for instance. You talked about the Invincibles kind of mentality, and obviously I think it's very difficult to kind of I suppose, put kind of the tracing paper of the current season over the top of the Invincibles era because it's very different. But I do think you've got a point in regards to kind of he knows the mentality of a winning team. He knows the characters that you need in the dressing room to push us forwards. And that's something that we've kind of struggled to identify in players of recent years. He has, I think, done that with Lokonga and White. I think they're both leaders. Lokonga had the armband for a bit and Lelect at 21 years of age. So that's positive. But I still think there is an element of kind of mental weakness in the way that we recruit players. And that's left us in a situation where we're a week away or less than a week away from the season with so much still to do. And I'm still scratching my head, Shane. Now, I can't come up with an absolute answer for you because there's still time in the window and it's really difficult to evaluate Edu with time still left. But the conclusion is if it ends right now and the buck stops at this point, the window would be a failure in a really good opportunistic time to improve and attack the next season. So that's kind of both sides of the argument. And I think I can't really give you a full conclusion until we see the end of the transfer window.
That is fair enough, Tom. And obviously your opinion so far up to this point is, it wouldn't be unfair of me to ask you,
Of course.
what do you think will happen because we don't know. We can both hope and we can both agree that they'll pull their finger out and they'll smash it for the next 2 weeks.
Just very quickly, I wanted to talk about Willock as well because I know Mo raised the point and Liv did as well. Because my viewpoint is kind of different. So for the interest of kind of the other side, I think the reason why we've sold him when we have is obviously a lot to do with the failure to sell players previously in the window. And I think if we'd have moved on Torreira, Kolasinac, Eddie Nketiah, Nelson, I don't think we would have been forced into kind of moving on Willock. I would say that £25 million in the current state of affairs is a good deal. I think it's a good amount of money. And I think it's certainly something that if you look back across the history of Arsenal selling players, to think that we would have got 25 million quid for a player that's had a good 6 months elsewhere where there's no guarantee that works at Arsenal. And by the way, that Newcastle system that he was playing in provided him so much more freedom than he was ever going to get at Arsenal. And tactically, it was never going to work out the same. And he probably could go and flourish. And Mo, you're absolutely right. In let alone 5 years, 5 months' time, we might be looking back and going, we never should have let him go. But I just think it's important to kind of imply the context that tactically and system-wise, I never think he's going to be able to afford the same kind of freedoms and responsibility that he is going to be allowed back again at Newcastle. And I also don't really play his best position. If we'd have played a 4-3-3 with 2 8s and a number 6 in behind, he really could have filled that number 8 role fantastically. But I'm not sure he's quite specialised to play that number 10 position behind the striker that we're desperately crying out for. But he does have a lot of characteristics that, yes, we do need. I'm just not sure I could personally turn down 25 million quid in a window where we do need to raise those funds for a player that it is a big risk, kind of like Ainsley Maitland-Niles was in 2020, to not accept that 18 million from Wolves. I have those similar kind of vibes, if that makes sense.
Well, for me on Willock, yeah, I disagree. Tom and Liv, I heard you agree with Tom as well. There, I just disagree because I do get your tactical point on Willock. What I would say is currently tactically it's not working for Arsenal. So we've got someone else that represents a different option or a really good plan B tactically, and that tactical change he works so well in. I would have thought that would be a really good idea to keep him. What I don't want to do is Arteta only have a plan A that actually does not look like a plan A. It's looking like a plan D right now. It's so poor. And I don't really know what Arsenal do when it's not going our way. I remember when we had Olivier Giroud, I always used to say he's the best plan B striker in the league. At least we knew that actually when it's not going our way and we need to change it up, we bring him on, it changes our whole style of play. Our wingers, more on the touchline, more crosses coming in. We've got the hold-up play of Giroud and people running off of him, that sort of thing. But now I can't really say to anyone, if they ask me, what's Arsenal's style of play and where do you go when it doesn't work? That's where I saw Willock coming in. So I would have liked him to have staked a claim for being in the starting lineup. And let's say, look, he's absolutely, bang on form in terms of, his recent games. He could have adapted. He's very young. We can't rule him out. We can't say he simply can't do this. Just like ESR, a lot of people say he hasn't got creativity. Well, we don't actually know that yet. Give him a bit of time to settle into his position. So yeah, I'm disappointed. But what can I say? Over to you, Shane.
Sheen, can I just touch on what Mo was saying with regards to Willock, right?
Can I come to? Can I read super chats?
No. Yeah, go on.
No.
Yeah.
I just want to read a couple of super chats, and then I'm going to come to you. You can talk about Willock.
Oh,
and
thanks,
there's another
Sheen.
point.
Thanks, mate.
No, there's another point that I want to start off with you as well. So we've got obviously Ray. Hit the like button at the Arsenal Lounge. You've got two of my favorite, Tireless Tom. There we go. And
That's some nickname now.
Mo. I don't know how to pronounce this.
So many jokes
Meticulous
there, and you didn't say
Mo.
I listen to Tom every morning. Follow Mo from FTV2. Much love. Thank you, Ray. And please, everybody, do hit the like button, as Ray said. Follow Tom from Goonertalktv. Follow Mo as well. They both have great content on the channel. Wayne as well. Thank you, Wayne. One of our regulars. Most of the time, I agree with Mo. Absolutely respect his view. But on Willock, I highly disagree. Joe is very average. Newcastle is level-headed. Newcastle is his level. Listen, guys, football is about opinions. As you just saw, Tom and Mo, they have different opinion on this. The fact that we get to talk about this in a very calm and respectful manner is the most beautiful thing about football. You want to say something, Tom?
No, I wasn't. I was going to make a joke about Mo
something.
now being on my dartboard in my study now because he disagreed with me. But,
No,
but yeah,
it's all right. Lev.
Oh, yeah, all right, Sheen.
Right. No, I cannot forget you, my friend.
Thanks.
Start off with Willock, and then another thing that I want to discuss, and I'll put to you first, and then the guys. What is happening with Aubameyang? He hasn't scored a goal, right? We discussed this last week with Mo, and Mo said we need to support him. He will come good. He's done well for us. My personal view on that, until we're playing the current system that we're playing with the players we're playing, Aubameyang will never become good because he's not getting the service that he needs. Not his fault. He's just not getting what he's used to. So over to you, Lev. You can start off with Willock and then...
Right. Okay. So with the Willock thing, I kind of agree with Mo in the sense of we do need an attacking midfielder, but I was always, when I was looking at Willock, I was always doubtful that he could reach the levels required. Right. Where I do agree with Tom is the fee for someone who's really not proved himself outside of a little loan spell. 25 mil. It was, I mean, if you look at the fact that you've got a centre midfielder, who's played for Switzerland in the Euros and was, one of the better players in that midfield, albeit it's a slower tempo and all that. We've already discussed Xhaka suits a slower level, slower tempo. 25 million in comparison to what we were getting for Xhaka, which was 12, right? So I do think the price was good. There's a very simple way of addressing this situation, Mo. Just put a buyback clause in it if you have doubts. Put a buyback clause in it. If you think it might come good, put first refusal, buyback clause in it. You're done. So I agree with you in that aspect. He could come good. Put a safety net there, but I also agree with Tom in the sense that 25 mil for someone who hasn't really proven himself yet was probably a good bit of business financially when we need that money. Very quickly before we go on to the Aubameyang thing, this pandemic story, I get it as well. I know it's a difficult time, but our players really, some of them are really not that good that they can't be improved. We've quite a decent, reasonable money. I mean, Basuma you could probably get for 30 million or something like that. I'm guessing maybe 40. Get rid of someone like El Neni and Torreira. Right back situation, you could easily replace Bellerin with someone for probably 20, 30 million. I'd even go and get Max Aarons and replace Bellerin, right? Because he's that poor. Okay, so I do think we can address those issues without having to fork out too much. So the pandemic, yes, I get, but also I do believe we can get players at the right type of money that would improve our squad. With regards to Aubameyang, quite straightforward, really. For me, he's a forward down the middle. He should never be on the left. When he's not playing well and scoring goals, he doesn't contribute as a footballer. He's not the most technically gifted footballer. Let's be very frank and honest here, right? You see him on the ball sometimes. It doesn't look like the most gifted player, but he's a ruthless striker. Season upon season, his record doesn't lie. He's a goal scorer. But to have a goal scorer, you need to give him the bullets. And we're not giving him the bullets. So we put him out left. And I think slowly he started to lose confidence. Right. And that's what's happening with him there, in my opinion. If you're not going to play him down the middle, he's a waste as on the left-hand side for me. That's my opinion with Aubameyang. I think he's losing more and more confidence. We're putting him out there, and it doesn't surprise me that this is happening. Mo addressed the fact that, you know, we had Giroud as a backup, you know, a number 2 striker who was one of the best in the league for doing that. The problem we had with Giroud, just very quickly going on to that, is he became our first team striker, and we had the likes of Ozil playing the balls to someone who's static with his back to goal. So that was a problem too. So when you have a striker like Aubameyang and you take away someone like an Ozil type, you take away his strength with running in behind. He stopped doing it. Pepe, you've seen it with Pepe as well. He makes a lot of runs, doesn't get the ball when he's expecting it, has to come back. Until we get that player that thinks really quickly on the ball, a split second quicker than everybody else in that AM position, we're not going to get the best out of the likes of Aubameyang, in my opinion. And we're putting a lot on the shoulders of ESR. In that number 10 role. We need somebody else in case he doesn't do it. Otherwise, he'll start to lose confidence too. And he's only a young lad. So, you know, it's just certain things I've seen over the years we've done to players. We're doing it again. We buy number 10s, put them out wide. We've done that historically. We did it with Arshavin. We did it with Ramsey. We did it with Wilshere. Why get players that are central? Ozil. Why do we do this? These players do not have pace to beat quick fullbacks, but we put them out wide, and it's just ridiculous. And I don't know why we've stuck to it. So that's my rant there.
With Aubameyang, just you know, one quick thing. A lot of his brilliant moments for Arsenal have actually come on the left-hand side, where we've seen him on the left, cutting in, finding that far corner. He's done it on so many occasions, even near post a few times. And so when people say he can't play on the left, I get that that's not his best position, but I think he can play on the left. So to me, what it says is if some brilliant moments have come from Aubameyang and an Arsenal shot on the left-hand side, and why is it not working now? I think it's the confidence issue. I don't think that right now he's enjoying his football. I don't think that he's expecting to score when he gets on the pitch. And when I trace all of this back, tell me if you can kind of like come up with anything to prove me wrong here. But I can't remember him playing very well since the time Arteta publicly shamed him at the North London derby for turning up late and dropping him.
Good point, Mo.
And when that happened, I was really worried. I couldn't believe he did that. And I just thought to myself, I like the discipline. I was not bothered that he dropped him and that he was being a disciplinarian. I quite liked that. But the fact that he did it publicly, because he could have done everything that he did apart from doing it publicly. The fact that he did it publicly, to me as a player, would make me think, what were your motives for exposing me like that?
And a captain, don't forget that, Mo.
Yeah.
But surely he should have got over that by now, guys.
Well,
and Mo, the left side, very quickly, sorry to interrupt, but the left-hand side, I get what you're saying. A lot of his best moments have come from that left-hand side. But how many times does it take for an opposition team to know that he's playing on the left and he wants to cut in onto his right to shoot, or he wants to, eventually you become very predictable. And he's not the most gifted of players to do anything else.
Two things I'll say, right? First, on the point you've just made, everyone knows Nicola Pepe, what he's going to do all season. Ian Robin made a career out of this. He was a master of being able to continue to do what people knew he was going to do. Now, Nicola Pepe is going to play on the right-hand side. He's going to cut in on that left foot. And as soon as he gets that half yard, he's going to curl it, top bins, opposite corner. Everyone knows he's going to do that. And I expect that, I personally think Pepe is going to have a really good season. And we'll see him do that with a good deal of success, I hope. And what you're saying is true, but good players can still do that. And with Aubameyang, I forgot what I was going to say now. The point. You interrupted me.
Blame me now. I love that.
Mo, have a little think. Lev, quick yes or no. Would you start?
No, now I feel bad because I've interrupted Mo and he's lost his. He's making me feel bad.
I'll come back to Mo. I'll come back to you. Would you start Aubameyang on Friday? Yes or no?
Listen, currently I would say no. And I'll tell you why. I think Lacazette links up with the midfield a lot better than Aubameyang does. But, that's just my opinion. I'd rather have a proper out-and-out winger on that left-hand side. And with regards to Pepe, you're 100% right, Mo. I mean, Pepe, everyone knows what he's going to do, but Pepe is technically on another level. The way he shifts the ball around, the feet, how quick he is. I think he's a much more gifted player technically than Aubameyang is. And I hope you remember what you was going to say, by the way.
Have you remembered?
No, I haven't. But look, I get that Aubameyang might not be not the best technically, but he is a proper world-class finisher. The numbers do not lie. He really is. So, look, from my point of view, when we also go back to Aubameyang's debut at Arsenal, this is his first bad spell. And the way I see it is that this is where we come in as supporters. We have to rally around him. We have to kind of, all the stuff that he sees on social media and stuff like that, we need to be saying that, look, we trust you. We've got faith in you to come back, because he's been brilliant for us. Absolutely amazing for us. So, we need to repay some of that now. Hopefully he does come good.
You know what, Mo? I agree with what you're saying. The only thing is that until we're playing the system we're playing with the personnel we're playing, I don't think Aubameyang is going to come good, because we're not going to play to his strength, if you like. But I hear what you're saying. I see Tom is getting a lot of love on the chats as well. There's like TGT fan group here.
They're crazy, those guys.
He's got his own abbreviation, isn't he? TGTs.
Yeah. Well, for those of you, obviously, who just joined us, Tom is our special guest here. Follow him on Goonertalktv. Does great content. Follow Mo as well. Follow us as well. Hit the like. Tom, a 32-year-old, or 33, if I'm not mistaken.
32, I think he's just turned.
32, right? A player who's always been pacey, pace-based centre forward, fantastic finisher, right? Would have loved to play with the, Mesut Ozil on his prime. 250 grand a week, Arsenal captain, and the curse of the Arsenal captain, how it is. What do you make of Aubameyang and what's been happening? I hear what Mo said, that we need to support him, but this is now carrying on from last season. And he had a difficult season as well last season. I think there was a problem with his mum, and he was ill himself. And as Mo said, he had a bit of an issue with Arteta, where he publicly came out and said that. What's your thoughts? Where you stand on it?
I listened to your show last week with Lee and Mo.
Thank you.
And I tune in. I do. I think Lee made a good point when he talked about how kind of when a goal scorer who's kind of in his 30s has a bit of an off period, immediately the pundits, the analysis goes to his age, and you just kind of associate those two things. Where he's not scoring as much. But I mean, in my view, the biggest kind of drop off when someone kind of is getting to that older stage, it's the pace. That's the main thing that drops off. It's not how quick you are of thought at 30. You don't suddenly hit 30 and you lose your footballing brain. That's not what happens. Aubameyang is kind of going through that period, and he is a confidence player, and I think that's certainly. And I think, Mo, you raised a good point about the moment in the North London derby. I agree with you. I was all up for Arteta benching him, doing what you need to do in a disciplined sense. But I think Arteta showed his inexperience as a manager and how you cope socially with those situations in many things. Not just that, but about the Pepe kind of thing when he got sent off against Leeds. There's a number of examples that we could use. The thing about Aubameyang, I think, is that it's when you were saying he can't play on the left. I think it's wrong to say he can't play on the left. I think the right wording would be he shouldn't play on the left. And when Mo was talking about how we've seen some of his best moments as kind of on the left, as we did in the FA Cup final against Chelsea, playing in that 3-4-3 formation that really worked. I think the reason why you shouldn't, but it works sometimes, is just because we forget he's a quality player. I think, Mo, you brought up in that last show that he's amongst, when you look at the stats, some of the greatest names in the last 10 years. And that's because he is a world-class footballer. And if you put a world-class footballer out of position, they're not going to be as good as they are in their natural position, but they're still going to be good because they're good players. And I think for me, the striking situation is such an interesting discussion topic, because Aubameyang or Lacazette should play there. One or the other. It shouldn't be both. I mean, we made a mistake. I say it's ironic me saying we made a mistake signing Aubameyang. I think we made a mistake signing both of those strikers. We signed Aubameyang to replace the goals that we lost in Alexis Sanchez. Going with the benefit of hindsight, we probably should have signed one or the other, or we should have allowed Lacazette to just continue in developing in that number 9 role that he played in so well with Lyon, and we should have added a player like Nabil Fekir that he had at Lyon to play behind him and supply him in the same way. We never really did that. We have Mesut Ozil, who is a different kind of number 10 to Nabil Fekir, not as direct and a little bit more fluid. And I think what a lot of people criticise Lacazette for is that his movement's not good enough, or that he's not in the box enough, or he doesn't pop up in the right spaces. And despite having the 3rd best conversion rate of any player with over 10 goals in the Premier League last season, people say he doesn't score enough, or he's not clinical enough, which is factually untrue. He just doesn't get the opportunities and the frequency of quality chances he needs to score. And that's why I've always kind of been a big advocate of saying, I don't think it matters if you put Robert Lewandowski in our number 9 role right now. I don't think he's getting anywhere near close to the same amount of goals as he's getting for Bayern. I don't think you get the same amount of goals from Erling Haaland he's getting at Dortmund. You could pick up any striker from any club that's doing well right now, a Vlahovic, a Lautaro Martinez, whatever. You name the player, a Tammy Abraham for all you like. You put them into this Arsenal number 9 position right now, with the quality of chances that we're giving that striker, none of them are getting the goals that they should be getting. And that's the real crux of this transfer window, and why that number, or just not even necessarily number 10, but why adding quality creativity this summer is so important. But even if we do that, I think, and a lot of people have been pointing this out in the chat box, is that the buck will stop with Arteta. It doesn't, the tactics, the system, the way he wants his team to play, as Mo pointed out earlier, is not improving. It's not getting better. We're not seeing progression. And if that carries on into the season, I worry that the club will wait too long to make a big decision that should be made. And I spent a lot of last season blindly backing the coach, and I look back on it with reflection and think I was a bit of an idiot to do so at times. But now it's very much a case of reflection. We're not progressing. The tactics aren't working. The systems aren't working. We are not getting the best of the players that should be giving us a lot more.
So would you agree with me, Tom, that a more experienced and a better manager will get better out of Aubameyang at this current state even?
I would hope that a more experienced coach would not play a world-class striker in a wider role, is what I would say.
Thank you, Tom. I like you even more now.
Always room for improvement.
You know, you're saying the buck stops with Arteta, and so it should, because in spite of everything that we're seeing on the pitch, I think a different manager can come in with everything the same at his disposal, all other factors exactly the same. The only variable is manager, and that manager can get more out of what he's got available to him. So for me, there is definitely a case that Arteta is underperforming. I think for me, that's obvious. It's beyond even any argument. 8th in the league, and you know what we've seen so far from him, even though it's pre-season, doesn't fill us with confidence, and I think he's underperforming. So a lot of these things, I always like to kind of mention that these, I'm sure they're not excuses from anyone, but Arteta himself is underperforming. And I just really am very curious this season. If it continues to go as badly as it is, I wonder how long he'll last. I remember last week really prodding Lev to kind of...
That sounds wrong. That sounds wrong. That did not happen.
All right, I was pushing Lev off the fence.
There you go. Yeah, he was.
Yeah. You know, do you think Arteta's going to be our manager at the end of the season coming? So, you know, people in the chat, Tom, I'd love to know what everyone else thinks as well, because this is before the Tottenham game. And now we don't have any more preseason left. Now it's straight into the thick of it. Brentford away, then 2 massive games, and God, could be dodgy.
Do you know what? This is a good thing that we can follow up on, because I've got a question that, Lev, I'm going to put to you, and then we'll move to Tom, because I'm also interested to hear Tom's views on this. I've watched some of his content before, so more or less I know, but this is a bit more direct. So can you explain to me, Lev, what's the logic of bringing Maitland-Niles, play him at right back, right? And then on a press conference a week before, say the best technical right back on the club is Cedric Soares. So you leave him out, bring Maitland-Niles at right back, and then move Maitland-Niles to midfield, and then bring Soares on. I didn't understand that. And there's a lot of other things about Arteta that I don't understand, but just that to start with. And follow up on what Mo said. Do you think he's going to be here at the end of the season?
Oh, you're going to hit me with this question again. What is wrong with you guys? Always hit me with... Okay, firstly, going back to... Let's address the Arteta thing first, right? The clearest example was Chelsea with Lampard, right? I don't think our squad was as bad as 8th. If you think about it, last season, we were only a couple of games off from being up in that top 4. Had we had a more experienced manager now in hindsight, and very much like Tom, I was back in Arteta, I wanted it to work, right? However, in hindsight, now when you look at it, there was a few games away from being able to challenge for that sort of top 6, top 4 position. And had we done what Chelsea had done, been more ruthless, got rid of Arteta, accepted that we, made a mistake, and maybe replaced him with someone with a lot more experience, I think we wouldn't have had such a bad season. So that's where I'm at with the Arteta situation. With regards to you saying Maitland-Niles going out on the right, and then him saying about Cedric being our technically best right back. I mean, I can give you loads of examples. I mean, Maitland-Niles, when he was playing right back, for me, was far better than Bellerin. But yet then he got rid of Maitland-Niles, and suddenly Maitland-Niles drifted into the background. Then eventually Cedric came onto the scene and looked a far better right back than Bellerin. But then he moved him from right back to left back, where Cedric made a mistake, and then suddenly Cedric was dropped and disappeared from the scene. I mean, there's loads of examples I can give that maybe the inexperience is coming through. And this, we always said, this is going to be a man that's going to be making mistakes on the job. Very much like any of us, taking a job that we've never done before, you're going to make mistakes, but not at a top level management position. You can't be letting somebody make mistake after mistake, especially when we've already fallen back behind everybody else. And, I don't know. I don't see him lasting the whole season at this rate. That's my opinion.
Fair enough. Just before I come to Tom, Arsenal have got a lot of things to do in terms of players in, out until now to end of the season. Sorry, to end of transfer window. It's about 2.5 weeks left. My personal view, and this is my advice to board, is that it will be a lot easier for them to get rid of Arteta now and bring Conte, who might be able to get a lot more out of the current bunch of players and maybe one or two added on, than to go and sell a few and then bring in a few. But that's my opinion. Tom, take it away.
Yeah, obviously, like my opinion on the Arteta thing has changed a lot over kind of the last 12 months. I always caveat it with, no matter what, I want him to turn it around, no matter how I feel about his managerial situation.
Yeah, same.
And you should always want him to. I think it's a really weird mindset. And there unfortunately are those that would rather see Arsenal fail just to get rid of Arteta. And it's a strange mindset, but they do exist. And the thing is that after 6 months of his tenure, obviously we won that FA Cup, and that gave us kind of a lot. It gave him a lot of stock, and we went into and then the pandemic hit, and it's probably the most tumultuous situation from a very inexperienced coach. But you can only kind of level that for so long before that kind of clout runs out. And I think that we do need to be seeing improvement, especially when we've brought in and spent money. I mean, we talk about how much we need to do. We've already spent 75 million quid. Like, this team is supposedly 75 million pounds better off than it was last season. We do need to see improvement based upon that, with the context of how the teams around us have also improved. And that is going to be the real test, is when I don't expect us to win against Chelsea or win against City, because they are far and away better teams than us, better prepared, but better coaches. Brentford, though, like, we should go into that game and we have a better team than them, and we are better than them. And I'm not discrediting Brentford by any way. It's just contextually, when you look at the two teams, Arsenal should win that game. And so that's a good measure of where we're at, as will be how we perform against Chelsea and Man City. I feel like, Shaheen, whilst I think there's a lot of people that share your opinion about getting rid of him now would make a lot of sense and going into the new season. Like, in reality, it's never going to happen. And Antonio Conte, I'm on board with you. I'd love Antonio Conte, but if he looked at Spurs, who obviously finished higher in the league than us last season, and went, this ain't for me, you're not showing the ambition. I don't think you'd look at Arsenal as a club right now and say they're necessarily showing as much ambition as a lot of other clubs. I mean, to me, I look at a team like Aston Villa, and if we put our sensible hats on for a minute, they are a team showing a lot more ambition to try and catch us, to close that gap to us. I'm not saying they're trying to get to the top forever, but they're looking at Arsenal as kind of the deer that's fallen away from the pack, and they're the lion that's trying to grab us right now, because we are vulnerable. And they're showing a lot of ambition. They lose Jack Grealish, and as I think it was their CEO that came out, and he spoke like I wish an Arsenal CEO would speak to their fan base. Absolutely. And he talks about how we've lost Jack Grealish. We tried to keep him. We did everything we could. We had this clause. And we brought in Emi Buendia, who I wished we'd got. I really do wish we'd got him. Danny Ings is a really surprising signing that came out of nowhere. That's a good add of goals to the front line of Ollie Watkins. And Leon Bailey, I don't know loads about. And a friend of mine who watches a lot of Bundesliga football says that he's inconsistent, and it will be interesting to see how he gets on in the Premier League. But, he's a wide player that improves on what they already have. And they've moved in the right ways to address those areas. Arsenal haven't addressed the areas. And they've not lost a big player like a Jack Grealish has gone from Aston Villa. And that difference between the two clubs' mindsets of approaching this and how the manager is approaching the situation, like Dean Smith's improved that Aston Villa team, and he's got the best out of the players he's got. Arteta, so far, if you look back across the last 12 months, has got the best out of some players, like your Sakas, your Emile Smith-Rowe, your Martin Odegaard in those 6 months. Players like Kieran Tierney have improved and got better through naturally progressing, but also, I think, through his coaching. But then across the entire team, it's not improved enough for us to be where we need to be. And these first few games are going to be big. I'd give him 10. And then I think that's at a point where if we're, say, below 8th in the table, you should look to make a decision. Because I think while some people think we should wait till Christmas, I think that's far too late to really make a genuine impact on your season. I know that people will say, well, Tuchel came in a lot short and won a Champions League, but the resources Chelsea have got compared to what we've got are insanely different. So I'd give it 10 games. I'd look at where we are and move from there.
That is very fair. Arteta is a conversation I'd like to carry on with you guys. I'm conscious that you need to leave, Tom. So I'm going to ask you a question and then...
Sure thing.
Would Brentford be worried facing us on Friday? And what do you think, if you had to predict the scoreline, what would it be?
I think they're buzzing with that fixture as their first game. I think they're absolutely buzzing with that fixture, because if you're a new team coming up, there's no easy game. Like in the Premier League, there's no easy game. You don't look and you go, oh, we go off against Burnley or a Watford or a fellow promoted team or someone that we could get at, and Brentford are a team that know how to play football. I think they look at that game and go, we got a big team that are vulnerable. No one in the league is scared of Arsenal, because Arsenal are vulnerable and Arsenal have shown that they are beatable by anyone. Anyone in the league, from the bottom place team in the league to the top of the table. And I think if they lose that game, they'll go, you know what, we had nothing to lose. Arsenal are a better team than us. They spent a hell of a lot more money. They've got a lot better players than us. We move on to the next one. The games against Arsenal are not going to make a difference really in the long scheme of us staying up or not, which is their main target. But if they win or they get a draw, that's a massive momentum boost to them. So it's the perfect game for them in the first game of the season, whereas for Arsenal, it's a must-win from day one, as is every game pretty much. And you can kind of make sense of us dropping points against those that we're in competition with for the top four, even though they're the biggest tells of whether or not we will be in competition for the top four. But I'm confident as an optimist that I am, but I am worried about it, and I don't think Brentford are. So there you go.
I'm going to press you for a prediction, Tom.
On my show, I said 3-0 in the most optimistic manner.
You've got to stick with that, then, don't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 3-0, mate, and you can laugh.
3-0 Brentford or Arsenal?
Thankfully 3-0 to us, but I think that's fanciful, but it is just the optimist and the fantasy fella in me. So yeah, it's still 3.
Fair enough. Well, listen, we really enjoyed having you on, Tom.
No problem, mate.
It was a fantastic conversation from my point of view. We're going to obviously carry on the conversation with the guys with regards to Arteta. I know you got an appointment, but you would have stayed on, and we would have loved to have your opinion on the conversation as well. So hopefully we can have you on soon. And thank you very much for coming on, man. If you want to say anything to people who are watching or the panel, go for it.
For sure. No, thank you, Shane and Liv and Mo. Really appreciate you having me on the channel. It's been a great time and some really good points and discussions. And I mean, I learned things from you guys and some of the points you raised that I'm going to talk about on my show, which you can find us at the Goonertalktv, and soon you'll find us over doing some stuff for Football London and that. So make sure you keep an eye, because there's some exciting stuff coming. So please do. But yeah, apologies I can't stay on longer. I definitely would have done if I didn't have this thing next. But I'll be back on, I'm sure, and absolutely no.
We'll definitely sort something out. We have you back
and,
soon.
And vice versa. I'd love to have you guys on as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Anytime.
Thanks, Tom, man.
See you later, guys. Have a good one.
Take care, Tom.
Cheers. You
Brilliant,
too.
mate.
Bye-bye. Cheers. Mr. Haidar.
Yeah.
What we're going to do with this Mikel Arteta situation, man?
We're going to back him, aren't we? We're going to back him, because ultimately we don't make the decision to fire him. We can talk about what we would do. We can talk about the hypothetical, but we don't have that direct line into Stan and Josh to say, look, there's better people out there. So we're just going to back him.
Mo, I want to ask you something, man. Listen, this is what baffles me, okay? That nobody in the Arsenal setup right? I don't expect Stan and Josh to know anything about Arsenal, right? But surely there are people in the Arsenal board, setup, coaching, advisors that would know, and they can see that this is a problem. This guy is not, you know. Listen, I'm going to put this to you, Mo. Brentford away, yeah. For argument's sake, we get a draw, right? Chelsea home, we're going to lose. City away, we're going to lose, right? Next home game, right? If Arsenal go 1-0 down, you know, out of you both, because you're season ticket holders, right? The atmosphere is going to be crazy. The pressure that is going to be on the manager, who's inexperienced, who's lucky to still be here. And I think one of the reasons that he's still here, because the fans are not allowed back in the stadium. I mean,
Look,
no, man.
we see on social media a lot of rhetoric, a lot of talk about being frustrated with Arteta, that sort of thing. The one thing you have to realise, the average age of Arsenal season ticket holders is quite high. The retention rates at Arsenal are unbelievable. People do not give up these season tickets. So the people that are attending the games, 40,000, a large proportion of the 40,000 odd season ticket holders, just very repetitive customers. They just go all the time. They don't really sing that much. I don't really think they're that, not a lot of them are that vocal. We don't necessarily see what the season ticket crowd, we don't get their thoughts, reflected on social media, in my opinion. So I hear what you're saying, and it could well be the case. But equally, there have been times where I'm surprised at how sort of laid back a reaction I find inside the stadiums. So eventually the pressure will come, yes, but I don't think it will be like a melting pot. It's just not Arsenal style. And there's a lot of people that are just kind of a bit, I've got to leave now because I need to catch my train. And, no one's in my seat today. I can't really make it to the game. Doesn't really matter. I won't put it on the ticket exchange. There's too much of that. Too much, apathy, in the fan base. So it could be different. Arteta obviously has not had the baying crowd screaming at him before because of the pandemic. And if it does get bad, then he may well have that. But equally, it could take a lot longer than you think, Shaheen.
I don't know, man. Mo, I'm just surprised that Lev does not know anybody in the club see the mistakes that this guy keeps making in terms of substitution. Last season, there was quite a few times that we did the shows together and we thought Arteta has made the same mistake again and again with the substitution, with the team selection. This whole Aubameyang thing we just discussed, right? That you've got a world-class striker that you're playing out wide, right? He's now part of the recruitment team. Don't forget, he got a promotion. What is it that they see and we're not seeing, Lev?
I don't really know, Shaheen. I think what they thought they were going to get is somebody that implements a new style of play that we'd maybe fallen behind with. So, for example, the type of style we used to play with Wenger, etc., had started to fall behind, and then you had this new high press type game coming in, which the likes of Chelsea and Man City had adopted, and then Liverpool. So I think what they thought they were going to get with Arteta is somebody that was going to come in and implement that and bring us up to speed with that type of play. But the problem you have is a catch-22. You want to play that way. Then if you don't have the right players for it, then you're not going to carry it out as well as the others. And you're going to leave yourself perhaps a little bit exposed at the back areas, especially with some of the weaknesses we have in the full back areas, etc. So there's a lot of things, but I think they're just hoping on time. We'll change it. We'll get in the right personnel in. We'll change it. But then if you look at what we're doing in the transfer window, there's nothing to suggest that that's going to change anytime soon or quick enough. So it's a concern for me. It certainly is. But then you could harp on about we've been playing players out of position for seasons before Arteta. We spoke about it earlier. We did it with the number 10s playing them out wide, and Wenger used to do it. He created this sort of midfielders playing out wide and cutting in, and and losing that ability to get in behind fullback. So this isn't anything new. I just think that they thought acquiring Arteta would give them that understanding of where they'd fallen behind in this new style of play with the high press. But again, it's a big issue if you're not got the right players to carry it out.
You know what worries me? What worries me is that I thought when the season finished, this is the red line, this is the bottom. No European football and the 8th, and things will happen, heads will roll, and it hasn't happened. So now I'm thinking, where is the red line? Where is the bottom?
It's dropping.
Heads will roll. Does Arteta need to finish just above relegation? Does he need to finish 11th? What needs to happen? Or where is that line that somebody would turn around and say, well, this is a problem now? And also another thing, I think if Arteta will get the sack, surely Edu and Vinay need to follow him out as well. And I think that may be one of the reasons that he's not sacked yet, because they appointed him. You remember that 12 o'clock dash to his house? You remember that, Mo? And please become our manager. Anyway, Mo, going forward, do you think Brentford are worried about facing us?
No, I think they're excited, Shaheen. I don't think they're worried at all. They've been given the privilege of opening the season. Their first time in the Premier League. They're the ones that get to open the season. It's their ground, all the buzz, all the cameras, under the lights, Friday evening kickoff. It's not just a random game against Burnley. This is against a team with a reputation, with an illustrious history, a team that have won the Premier, that has won the Premier League. This is a big, big club. They get to open and say, look at what we've got against a team that almost Arsenal are a good team to play, because you get a lot of kudos for beating a team called Arsenal, but the team that you're playing is no longer Arsenal, if you know what I mean. So you get the reputational...
You get the name. But
yeah, you get the reputational benefit, but you don't actually get the tough game to go with it. So they'll be looking at us. They'll be looking at our vulnerability on set pieces, and they'll be licking their lips, and they'll be, in my opinion, sensing a really, really good opportunity to announce their season with a bang. So I'm not positive. I'm not optimistic about the result. I think it will be a draw. I think we're going to draw 1-1, but I think that, God, that place is going to be rocking, and I think that we're going to have some very, very difficult moments.
Yeah. Lev, same thing to you. Are they going to be concerned about facing us? Will they be concerned about our lethal attacking line, our strong midfield, our solid defense, and our top-notch goalkeeper? Which one of these four they'll be concerned about?
I don't think they're going to be concerned at all. It's a shot to nothing for them, basically, because it's a London derby, right? Let's not forget that. They're going to be up for it. It's a lot of these teams, when they first come up, they're at their best when they first come up. They're excited, their adrenaline's pumping, and one area that Arsenal will struggle with is set pieces, and they will know that, and they will highlight that. And I could typically see us dictating the play in the first half, having loads of possession, not really doing anything with it, and then suddenly they hit a cross-in or a corner and they score. And Mo's right, it's a big name Arsenal, but it's no longer the Arsenal of old. And we are vulnerable. We have got frailties, and if there's ever a chance for them to beat us, it's now. I mean, we were saying this before. It's not Arsenal anymore. It's the Walmart Nuggets, isn't it? Let's be honest. Yeah. So they could pull off a shock. It wouldn't surprise me.
Zach, just in case if you didn't know, I was being sarcastic, my friend. So just in case you didn't know, we'll be going on for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. I had my lovely cousin Cheyenne, who just called me and reminded me of that, and that he's watching, so he sent his regards to you guys. Mo, anything to close the show?
Yeah, I'd quickly close on the fact that wouldn't it have been nice if we had just said, need a goalkeeper, Onana, 6 million, done. Defender, Ben White, 50 million, done. Lokonga, Tavares, yep. Get rid of a couple of players as well. Hassan Oa, rumoured to be a cut price deal this summer. 30 million, done. Andre Silva scored hatfuls of goals last season in the Bundesliga. Went for around 20 million, done. Wouldn't that have been nice? Nice and simple. But it's not the Arsenal way. So there's Dreamland. And obviously we didn't do that. So I'll leave you on that note.
Thanks, Mo.
Lev.
Listen, there's a lot of people. What I do want to say is a lot of people in the chat saying take our questions and all of that. We will be doing a show to take questions, and keep an eye out for that. But I mean, I agree with Mo and all this stuff we were just touched on earlier on with the pandemic. Yes, there's a pandemic, but it could have easily been done. It could have easily been taken care of, and without really paying through the nose, you know, especially with the players we have, they can be improved on. And Mo's just listed a few there that we could have done. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's another season with the same transfer window we've always had. Just keep our fingers crossed. We want the best for our club. We want Arteta to do well. You know, we're not being negative for the sake of it. So I hope we do well, but I am worried. That's it. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, listen, I can't end on a better note than these two guys. So I'll thank you all for watching, giving us your time. Subscribe to Arsenal Lounge. Subscribe to Mo's channel. Hit the like button on the video. Mo, it was a pleasure to have you on for another show, brother. We do these shows every week on Mondays. Hopefully next week, Monday, we'll have something positive to talk about. Maybe a win, maybe a a good signing, big name, something to get the journaling going a little bit, But it is what it is, guys. Thank you again for giving us your time. Mo, thank you for giving us your time. Lev, I'll let you close the thing, man.
Right, this has been the Arsenal Lounge. That's Mo. That's Shaheen. Keep an eye out. We're going to be doing watch-alongs and after-match reactions. So if you don't want to ask these questions, do so. But for now, Arsenal Lounge, peace out.